Hello everybody. Today we're taking a look at a variant of Axis and Allies revised edition called Pact of Steel with China on the AAA software platform. So this will be a playthrough slash review, I suppose, as Germany. I will let the AI play everything else, including both my allies, Italy and Japan, to give the poor AI the very best chance of winning. Set the difficulty setting on the hardest, as always. So take a look at the map and you'll notice a funky graphic redesign, which I think looks pretty cool. There are significant differences on the map in southern and eastern Europe, I noticed. I think to accommodate the Italy variable. China is bigger by one space, it has an economy. Still not representative of how massive China was and its potential power at the time, but I appreciate the added detail. And maybe it's just big enough to overload the Japanese ability to wage war both in Asia and across the Pacific against the Western Allies. But we'll see. I think if Mussolini could have seen this map, he would have been happy to have Italy its own power. But I noticed the guys who made this, or whoever, they made a mistake. They didn't give Italy the Horn of Africa to start. And that was, Mussolini's crowning achievement, supposedly, before the start of the war, since he had all these grandiose dreams and aspirations for a second Roman Empire and any type of significant colonial rule. He's so desperate to be a great world leader and grab the world's attention. So that's why he attacked Ethiopia and occupied it. I think it appears as Abyssinia on the old maps. And even though Ethiopia didn't have any modern tanks, or maybe no tanks or planes, had guns, so they had somewhat of an army. But still, Italy had to use poison gas secretly to take everything down there, or occupy it anyway. Anyway, I find that curious that they made Italy a significant player in this, but didn't give Mussolini his proper colonial rule in East Africa. Anyway, so like standard Axis and Allies revised with Germany, don't have too much going on in the way of Africa at all. I'll just try and hold Libya. The German Navy is just woefully inadequate to do anything offensive. By the look of it, Baltic, it's just going to stay put, whatever units I have there. Mediterranean is just going to be a speed bump. And you have to march east with as much infantry as possible. In a lot of versions of ANA, actually, as the Germans, 10 men a turn minimum with whatever you have left. Maybe an artillery or a plane, because they're a little bit cheaper in these versions, being 10 instead of 12 like it was in original per unit. Save some IPCs if you can for technology role. It has the same technology advancement feature as standard Axis and Allies revised, I noticed. So maybe 5 IPCs a turn, or a few anyway, and on the third turn, save for a roll. And that's about it. That's all you can hope for. Caucasus is going to be the hardest territory. You can, it looks like on the first turn you can exchange the Caucasus with the Russians, and ideally you want to take it with maybe 1 unit, just to prevent the Russians from building there, denying them that ability. But then making sure you don't get cleaned out by the counterattack, which is sure to follow. So you do the the 3 territories on the east. I probably put too much into the Caucasus. That's a mistake, actually, because it's going to get crushed the next turn. But you do deny the Russians the opportunity to build there. And it is the single most important land territory in that whole part of the map, so it's worthwhile just to take it for 1 turn. Let's see. That's a plane. I hate using aircraft over territories with anti-aircraft guns because I just wind up losing them. And I took the Caucasus with too much there on the first turn. Sunk the British battleship though, that's okay. That's useful because that will just wind up in the North Sea if you don't do that. Anglo-Egypt, Sudan will probably be reinforced. So you just play a defensive battle in the North Africa area, north of the Sahara. You can't really hope to make serious inroads in Africa when you're trying to, priority has to be the Eastern Front in Russia. So redeploy there. Let's see. $47. The British. Yeah, moving into Africa. That's expected. So Japan, this is going to be... Oh, they're bombing the Russians already. Took India. I never will understand that. AI's proclivity to just give up on India in all of these versions of Axis and Allies. It's just weird to me. So America's crossing the Atlantic. Now we have Italy. Ooh, they're moving into Africa with stuff which I don't like. That's not helpful. And I'm going to get smashed, it looks like, by a strong counterattack from the Russians here. Round 2. And Germany's already reeling backwards here. Oh wow, the Japanese are going to lose a bomber in the Caucasus. Yeah, well, they're flying planes into Russia too. Wow. Got pushed back right to my original borders there. So it's the 10 men thing. It has to be this way. How else are you supposed to maintain the Eastern Front with the Germans, honestly? You just take massive casualties. Yeah, see, Anglo-Egypt is very well defended, and there's more stuff coming into Africa, so yeah, you can't really focus too much of attention there. Although, it looks like the Italians have a lot of stuff, even on the Eastern Front. Look at that, 9 units. It's bigger than the German army on the Eastern Front. That's so funny. So I mean that's a criticism, I guess. Another one that I can easily identify. I think in real life the Italians, their Eighth Army in Russia had like 235,000 men or something only. They didn't have a lot of heavy equipment. It was in the south, though. I guess that's the only maybe truly accurate thing there. I can't honestly think of too many like good pieces of equipment the Italians had during the Second World War. Honestly, certainly didn't have three armored divisions. Had their Carcano rifles. I guess that's the most famous and enduring weapon the Italians produced. Although I read it didn't really work well when in extreme cold weather. Had the fifth biggest navy in the world at the time, although it was a hodgepodge of older and newer ships. And I also read that it couldn't really sail and fight except in clear weather because they hadn't upgraded to radar. So it was, although it had their navy had some pretty big cool ships, they were limited in what they could do. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna garrison Western Europe. You have to. Second turn, even. I mean, that's not a lot of men I have there, but you have to keep maintaining it since you have no ability to construct a navy at the start of the game. You just have to have the ability to take Western Europe right back when it falls, and it always falls in revised fairly quickly because all of your attention is focused in the east. Let's see, China's down to 2. It has a lot of equipment there, so it won't fall instantly like in original ANA. That was, I mean, I did a video where I did modifications for original ANA, and I forgot the whole problem with China, because in a lot of these games it's just 1, 2, buckle my shoe for Japan, and then 3, 4 out the door for China. And I mean, that is not a relevant situation in relation to the history. Like, it's laughable, actually. China had something like 4 million square miles of territory, 450 million people back then. And Japan was like 1/20th its size, or 1/6 its population. So, as if it could ever subjugate the whole countryside. Yes, China was deeply divided politically and regionally, to start the war, but it could, like Russia, trade space for time. And the best I think Japan could do in the long run would be to isolate it from the West. And I mean, that's about it, honestly. It wouldn't have gotten any farther than it actually did in real life by doing anything different, in my opinion. I mean, it wouldn't even have, I don't even think it would have gotten anything materially or economically out of China that would have helped it, then wage war effectively against the Western Allies or Russia. Like I said in a previous video, you can see um, documentaries, and the one says it's like 30 million people left, fled in advance of the Kwangtung army, and they took everything with them, including the train tracks that um, carried them west. So, yeah, it's kind of a logistical nightmare for the Japanese. And I really don't think, I mean, this is just the last thing I'll say about it that kind of bugs me about China in a lot of versions of ANA is the next big city or problem the Japanese would have had to deal with is Chongqing, which was the capital of New China after Shanghai and Nanking got sacked. And I don't think they could have taken it. I mean it's way farther down the Yangtze River. The Japanese ran out of logistics, fortunately for them, before they ever made it to that city. The Chinese would have had numbers at that point. They wouldn't have fled. It's a city carved out of a slope that comes right out of the Yangtze River, so it was resistant to aerial bombing because the Chinese had dug caves into the hill and had factories and everything in there. So it would have been just like another Stalingrad. Um, and another interesting thing I read about it was the Chinese actually had the ability to flood the approaches to the city because they could control the Yangtze to a certain degree. So, you could put the Japanese Imperial Army under 20 feet of water if it approached the city or tried to. I don't know. It's just ridiculous, these games when uh, Japan just smashes through China and like nothing. I mean, come on. It's so silly. And I think the only version of Axis and Allies to kind of get it right was the unofficial World at War by Xeno Games. I should take a look at that again for a video. Anyway, enough of a rant about the. We all know that anyway, right? It's just something, another sort of thing you have to overlook, I guess, to enjoy these games. But anyway, back to the regular scheduled program here. Don't usually rant like that in videos. Um, yeah, German war effort is almost exhausted on the Eastern Front already. Can't do anything with the ships in the Baltic. Allied units are really rushing into Africa. 7-Eleven, The Italians are this equal strength of the Germans on the Eastern Front. Uh, Caucasus are really tough too. So yeah, 8, 9. That'll be a big battle. Costly. So, well, actually, I'm confused since I don't control Italy, right? It's actually out of the question because I can't coordinate that attack with those units in the Ukraine. So it's actually worse than it looks right now for the Axis. And what the Italians have, 12, 8, 9, yeah. They could get wiped out easily there. Ten men. I'll build 3 of them in the East Balkans, though. This one's harder already. This version of Axis and Allies, you can just tell. I mean, splitting the German units. Ooh, wow. See, yep. Getting bombed now. Western Europe's going down. Have to fight a true 2-front war with. Oh, they landed with a significant amount of units too. Six. Wow. That's not good. Turn 3. Ooh, I like this though. Japan attacking the low-hanging, for picking the low-hanging fruit off the British tree there. It's always a good move. Take Australia. So hard for the Allies to get that back easily. Alaska, the most annoying thing the Japanese can do. So I like it. I like how the Japanese are playing actually. Get the overkill response from the Americans to Alaska. So that's accurate. 6, 8. Yeah, that's going to be a tough nut to crack. The Caucasus, honestly. So Russia's counterattack. It's pretty good. Got to go for those rockets. It's turn 3. And we'll go with 15 IPCs, I guess is all I can spare. I did get bombed too, so that's really bad. I needed those. So now I have to kill 6, 7 units in the west. I may not be able to move the Eastern Front here if I have to concentrate going the other direction. Big Navy in the English Channel there. Yeah, that's way too strong for me to attack with my Air Force, so. Am I going to be able to even move the Eastern Front this turn? Let's see. I'm really worried about that anti-aircraft too. Hate using my planes over those territories. Like I said before, it's just a recipe for disaster. You know, the person gets 2 hits or something like that. And, oh, I got lucky. I got really lucky there. That could have been way worse. Oh, but the German war effort stalled on the east. Turn 3. Japan has not dealt with the American Pacific Fleet. Doesn't have India anymore either. Um, I just have men on the Eastern Front. I can't. I don't have the ability to mobilize heavy equipment and move it out there when I'm trying to fend off the British in Western Europe. Turn 4. Uh-oh. Wow. Oh my gosh. The British were aggressive there. Holy. Took Norway. Hit Japan as hard as they could. See what their response is. They're squeezing China out. Sinking four units. Yeah, they won't be able to take China for another turn. But as always, if you just stick around on the Eastern Front with the Germans, it gives the Japanese an opportunity to bum rush the show, so to speak, from the opposite direction. If they're knocking right on Russia's back door here. And that's always bad. It's so terrible to have to deal with that if you're the Russian player, because you're torn even worse. Wow, they're still able to muster a huge counterattack on the Eastern Front. Wow, that's interesting. They did. No, they didn't move the center though. North and south. Just smashed through Ukraine. Holy. Eastern Europe's wide open now. I'm down to 6 men, 6 divisions on the Eastern Front now. But look at how much stuff Italy has. Like, that's just silly. That's as silly as Japanese just conquering all of Asia. Oh, they did make China more viable in this version. There's no doubt. So like I said, I appreciate that a lot. It's much more realistic and harder for the Japanese. Still, yeah, Russia's not no joke in this version. They're able to hit back aggressively. If I get back Norway, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say the British player will put an end to my Baltic fleet. It's inevitable. They'll just sail right in there. There's nothing I can do to stop it. They'll probably learn. If I take Norway back, that'll be the last time I ever set foot in Norway. A lot of British aircraft in the Caucasus. Interesting. I mean, it looks vulnerable, but it can always be counterattacked from Russia, so. Can't move the front and the south at all, the Germans. I'll take it. See what the British do this turn. They're wide open in the Middle East and India, though. Used up their navy in the Indian Ocean, too. 10 men, as always. Airplane. I mean, it might seem like critics will just say, "Oh, you're doing the whole all-out defense by just producing infantry mainly," but it's not true. Like you can be aggressive by using mainly infantry. I know it doesn't sound like that makes sense, but as long as you maintain a strong air force, you can sort of use that as TAC air, mobile artillery, to support huge tidal wave infantry attacks here and there. I'm getting hammered on the west by the British now every turn. And bombed. Thankfully, my Japanese AI partner is just menacing the British Empire, though. They're playing good. They're playing smart, actually. They're doing the right things. Germany, or sorry, America can. That's a smart move. They took the single best piece of property in the Pacific Ocean back from the Japanese. Borneo. The Italian army's going crazy. Italy owns the Caucasus. Oh, not for long. One turn. But that's attrition. That is honestly how you break the Russians over time. Look at that. They're still solid on the Eastern Front. Down to three infantry divisions. Outnumbered by the Russians on the Eastern Front. And I have to attack Western Europe every turn now. Germany's in trouble this game, honestly. Look at all the stuff in Algeria that can be moved into Europe next turn. Or maybe this turn, I guess. Because the Americans haven't gone yet. So that could wind up in Western Europe. It's probably going to take a bite out of, well, anything. Greece, Western Balkans. Who knows? What would you do if you had all that stuff and you were the American player at this point right now? I'm not so sure. You have a lot of options. I can't stop it really from landing anywhere it wants. The Italians do have a navy, but I mean, it's hiding. Small navy now. Ah, so you have to expose my airplanes to anti-aircraft fire again. You keep doing that, that's a recipe for disaster. But what am I going to do? The Allies are going to land there. It has to be contested with everything I have left. Good move by the Americans in the Pacific. I don't think the Americans have taken any defeat really in this game so far. They haven't done much fighting yet. I was lucky. Got back west. Ten men all day. If you're playing this opposed on a physical game board, honestly, just try this strategy with Germany. If you really want to annoy your friends. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I told you. That was. You could see that coming a mile away. Lost a navy. It's gone forever. At least until I can defeat Russia, if that's possible. But the British could have done that a couple turns ago, honestly. It just means I won't be able to get back the Scandinavian provinces. Oh, that's where they went. Western Europe. Oh, the Americans took a big beat. A lot of losses there. Wow, they lost. Still a lot of damage, though. That's like a whole turn's worth of production for Germany that has to be replaced. Oh, yeah. Italians are going to commit their navy. That's a speed bump too. Ooh, they bagged a lot of transports. So that move was extra costly actually for the Americans. Not only did they lose their invasion, they also lost their transport fleet. That was a disaster for the Allies. They got really unlucky there. Although, that, like I said, they still did a lot of damage. Borneo. Look at that. The Japanese have no easy way to get that back. Not in one turn, anyway. Smart. 1, 2. Yeah, it's more than one turn away. That was a good move by the Americans. China with some aircraft now, too. Russian aircraft. So it's hanging tough. It's interesting in this version too. It looks like the Chinese can move out of China. They don't usually. That's usually not a thing in Axis and Allies. It makes sense though. I like they always say that the Chinese have never waged an external war of aggression in their history. Only like fought amongst each other. Oh, should I do the whole attrition thing? 10 guys, entire Air Force, expose that to any aircraft fire. Actually, this could be a good move because it does deny the Russians the ability to build down there. I can sacrifice a lot, actually. It could help. I'm getting help in Germany too from the Italians, which is significant. You know what? The Allies are closing in from the south. I have to do this because they could all wind up in the Caucasus, and that might be game over if that happens. I would never get the Caucasus back if all that stuff that landed in Africa makes it through Persia. So that was worth it. I took losses there, significant losses, but I mean, it's the Caucasus. Of course, I'm going to lose a lot. Can the Russians afford to do the same if they've got the Japanese breathing down their neck? Yeah, the Japanese are right. You know, they're bordering Russia, so let's see. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's close. It's close for. It's getting close for China. Wow, Germany's getting carved up. Any place I can't reinforce just instantly disappears. That's going to be a big showdown between the Japanese and the Western powers in the Middle East. They're both got tons of equipment. The Japanese flew some of their planes into the Caucasus. That's interesting. Uh oh. It's Arrivederci, Regia Marina. Yep. Axis has no navy now anywhere. Well, the European Axis. Japan is the only part of the axis of evil there with ships. Wow, Russia got back some territory in both directions too this turn. So far, we're 7 turns in, and this is a close battle. I think. And it's time for rockets. Rockets, 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 rockets. I really need this. I'm gonna. What a waste. That's 30 IPCs I've wasted trying to get a technological advancement. And I'm exhausted on the Eastern Front now. I can't do anything. It the Italians' turn maybe, but I'm just too weak. I'm just holding on now, and I'm lucky. The Americans don't have more transports. Otherwise, I would have lost. It would have been even worse. So, I could spend my air force here to destroy the British ability to move more stuff into Europe. It's a worthwhile trade-off now that I have to somehow fend off the Russians. I'm just out of equipment in the east. This is a low point for the Axis. I mean, I can't take anything back. I didn't take anything back this turn. Let's see, a 7. Yeah, I think the Japanese are outnumbered in the Middle East too. On America's turn, there's going to be stuff disappearing, pieces eaten out of Italy. Yeah, you don't like to see British forces deploying into northern Russia like that. Although they did get back Borneo, that's a very important space. And they killed off a British bomber. Ooh, they're gonna do China. That's big. We needed that. Team Japan. So you can see it took 8 turns to subdue China. So that's a huge difference in this variant. Oh, and here's like a huge battle in the Middle East. Uh-oh. I have to rely on the Italians to move the Eastern Front now. What did they take Sicily, Sardinia, one of those places. Oh, Sardinia. See, I think that was probably a mistake by the Americans. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get to the Caucasus via the Middle East, but they could have attacked it probably directly or bitten off huge chunks of Eastern Europe. That's the first big mistake I've seen the American AI make. They could have been more aggressive there. But who knows? Something worse might be coming. Oh, there's American aircraft. There's a lot of Western aircraft in Russia now. 6, yeah, that's a lot of equipment coming up. If they turn that corner into the Caucasus from the Middle East, it's trouble for the Axis. They could bail out the Russians at the last possible second here. So yeah, I'm gonna just do kind of a suicide attack with like these 5 men. It'll be an important block Otherwise, stuff can just blitz up into the Caucasus. So, yeah, I'm prepared to sacrifice 5 divisions there. It won't have any air support. I could wind up losing all of those guys. Air Force is so seriously depleted too. Yeah, the only thing that matters here is attacking south of the Caucasus to slow down the Western allies. You know, Kazakhstan, the other territory isn't that important. Oh, I got it. Lucky. Hmm. So now it's the tide seems to have turned against the Allies, with the fall of China being the most significant event so far in the war in the East. Because they can't get it back, right? The Allies just can't, will never be able to get it back. So the writing might be on the wall now for the Allies. They still have a lot of equipment on the Eastern Front, but without China, I think it's going to be really tough. For the Allies now to have any sort of chance, it would require the American AI to be super efficient at redeploying all that stuff in Africa into Southern Europe as quickly as possible. But I don't trust the AI to be able to do that. They will probably just slowly plod east, and it won't be fast enough. Like I've said before in other videos, where the AI in Axis and Allies falls flat on its face is in certain situations where it requires dangerous gambles that could pay off, right? They're risky, but if they pay off, they could change the whole complexion of the battle here. Well, see, okay, it's sort of what I was talking about. I would have moved them farther east, though. But I guess that's what it did there is a compromise move. Honestly, this is a better AI, probably one of the best AI uh, demonstrations of Axis and Allies gameplay that I've seen. The AI is making some intelligent moves here. But it's now it looks like it's just too little too late. Although the Russians still have the capacity to counterattack locally. Um, Yeah, it's just that whole gigantic accumulation of equipment in China in the Caucasus now. It seems like it's going to overwhelm Russia eventually. Still, the Americans still have a lot of stuff though. Next to Persia. And you got to hand it to the Japanese AI too. They've played very well. They've played exactly how I would have played it. Avoided like any type of early catastrophic showdown with the American Pacific Fleet and just harassed the crap out of the Allies in the Pacific Ocean, getting into Alaska. Best move you're gonna find, taking Australia, all that stuff, and being viable on the continent. To just rolling over China. They played well. Italy too, honestly. I mean, it gave up on Africa after the first few turns, which is good. It just focused on the Eastern Front. Whole 10 men thing again. Honestly, that's how I can tell I'm playing an experienced uh, A player as the allies if Germany does that. Mainly just men. Like the first thing that goes through my mind is like, oh man, this isn't going to be easy. I think it's just the best way to play. See, the difference now is I can be offensive coming out of the Caucasus. I'm pushing the Russians back right up to the Russian territory. I would I would blame this situation on the American AI. It's not aggressive enough at this point. The situation requires way more risky, aggressive attacks into Western Europe or directly against Italy. Instead, it's wasting too much time in the Middle East, and it is sniping easy territories in Eastern Europe and Italy, but it's not enough. They could be doing a lot more damaging things. Like a human player would just attack directly into Italy, I would think, and force like the Italians to stop their forward movement against the Russians, it would bring all the Italian pieces backwards. So yeah, this is an obvious strategic blunder by the computer AI at this point. The American one, anyway. I think the Russian AI played fine. The British played fine. Just they didn't get the American AI right. Although it did, I mean, it made some good moves. I'll give it that. But in critical situations where dangerous gambles are warranted, like I said, the AI seems to just to fall flat every time. It has to be more aggressive here. But you know, it's flying planes into Russia. It can do some things right, I will admit. It's just not going to be enough to defeat a human opponent with a fair amount of experience. Japan attacking into Africa. It's going to be attacking into Russia, though. It's moments away, I think. See that move by the Americans? It's just too little, too late. I don't know how hard it would be to, if you think about it, to program an AI in a strategic board game to, in a move, sacrifice everything in an attack just to attrit its opponent. You know what I mean? It would be such a hard calculation to make. Because you would be asking the computer to lose an attack for the greater good. you know, it. I'm sure it can be done, but not easily. Because where would you there's only certain appropriate situations for that type of move. If you do it all the time, then you're bound to lose. But there are some situations where, say, everything that the Americans had there could, perhaps do a suicide attack into Italy, lose everything, and then maybe have one British transport, come in with a smaller force to mop it up. Or just, if you keep doing that, eventually it would break the much smaller economy of the Italians. But I don't know. It's so hard to model something like that, I suppose. But human players will. I mean, there's no problem with that. It's just a game, right? And believe me, I've played a lot of A&A games with those type of guys, gamblers, and what can you do? You can be playing optimally, and they just can throw caution to the wind sometimes and pull off stunning victories against the odds. I've had that a few times, not many times, but usually, I had my opponents are very careful players. But now it's time for the final battle here. I will spend everything, break the German army, to attack into Russia, just to give the Japanese an opportunity to finish them off on their turn. I hope. I mean, they have to. I'm not controlling them, so. But that's the gamble I'm willing to take. Oh, that's a lot of hits. Yep, got wiped, but will the Japanese attack now? I kind of set them up. At this point, you just have to inflict more losses on the Russians than they're able to replace. No matter how much stuff Germany loses. I mean, as long as the Western Front doesn't completely collapse, it's a viable strategy. Let's hope this is the end of Russia here. Japan just... Yeah. See, a human player will be able to identify when the time is right to do stuff like this. I mean, even if this fails, it didn't, but there would be no way to replace the type of losses. So yeah, it's over. This game's over. It looked so bad for the Axis after I failed my second attempt to get rockets. It looked bad, and I think a human player at that, if you could have like swapped the AI with a human player, they probably could have beaten me. Germany was pooched. I couldn't do anything. I was just sort of holding on. So we will, we know how this turns out. So I'm just gonna like fast forward the game here, because after Russia goes down in any version of A&A that I've played, the imbalance of IPCs is just too great, and the balance of power just keeps tipping farther and farther one direction, right? So what you're going to see, or what you would see if I played this all out, would be a slow, grinding battle to enter Africa, and eventually all of Africa would go down. And then at that point, the Axis would be prepared to launch an attack against Great Britain. And then also by that time you'd have tons of Japanese forces attacking the western side of America and stuff like that. So we'll just I skipped ahead here. Turn like 23 or something like that. And here you can see there was a point where I was just doing attrition type of moves against Great Britain. So I would do like suicide invasions, lose everything, but just do more damage to the British than they could rebuild. That's all you have to do. The game gets dumb towards the end. The strategy is so dumb. So there's no surprise why people don't typically play the game out to this point. Oh, and also, once the immediate threat of Russia is gone, you just could blow up way more income on technological advancements, which I did. I bought super submarines. I think it took me like nine rolls on one turn just to get it, and I just barely got it. But I mean, so you can afford to do that. So all this was in Africa. All this stuff coming up. Yeah, it's the. And then you can fast forward again to if you're interested to see what the fall of the U.S. looked like. And this is probably another like 6 turns, which like how Italy is on the west coast. It's just, I mean, the game has become so preposterous towards the end. But I'll just show you what it looks like, so you guys don't have to waste time. If you're curious to see like what the final battles look like. At this point, it had heavy bombers, and you can just do that to buy tons of bombers. Stop the Americans from producing. So yeah, that's it. So overall, I mean, it's this was a good version of A&A. I was impressed. AI played well for the most part. It sort of fell flat at a key moment there, which handed me the victory. But the revisions to this version, Pact of Steel with China, are pretty good. I'd love to see it as a physical game board, set up with humans playing either side. It would be very, very challenging for the Axis, I think. Although China's still, it's still too weak. Anyway, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more content coming soon.